and His Excellency Dr. Ala Nassif. Gentlemen, would you come to the table? Mr. Azzam Shalabi serves as the president of the National Industrial Clusters Development Program, or NICDIP as it is known. As president, he oversees the implementation of the Kingdom's Vision 2020 plan, the National Industrialization Strategy, and other government goals involving the diversification of the Saudi industrial sector and the establishment of new downstream industries. Prior to his joining as the head of NICDIP, he worked with Saudi Aramco for 25 years and played a significant role in major projects and strategy development. In particular, his expertise helped develop Aramco's petrochemical strategy and its industrial manufacturing development program. We're honored to have Azzam here with us today. His Excellency Dr. Ala Nassif is the Executive President of the Royal Commission at Yambu. As part of the Royal Commission's duties, he supervises Yambu Industrial City Management. While with the Royal Commission, Dr. Nassif participated in design and development programs, including that of a telecommunications center, engineering affairs building, and petrochemical services station. Previously, he worked with the Architectural College of Environmental Design at King Abdulaziz University and with the Ministry of Municipal and Rural Affairs. Please join me in welcoming Dr. Nassif and Azzam Shalabi.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, and good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I'm honored to be in front of you today, talk about a very passionate program that we are undertaking in Saudi Arabia. And I would like to recognize three members of our board that are present here that provide oversight over the Industrial Clusters Program. His Excellency, the Chairman of the program, Minister Tawfiq al-Rabi'a. Also, His Excellency Abdul Latif al-Uthman, and His Excellency Engineer Muhammad al-Madi. So this shows the importance of the program and for the future of Saudi Arabia and the collaboration between the United States and Saudi Arabia. What stems from building the auto cluster is really the industrial vision that's set by the leaders of Saudi Arabia. And this is the picture of King Abdullah bin Abdul Aziz, which sets the industrialization as a cornerstone and a choice that the kingdom has made to diversify the sources of its income and to provide jobs for the young, well-educated population. Such a vision has driven us to work on development of a number of industries. This development occurred many years before King Abdullah came to rule the country, but now it has been moving into a more transformational phase in the last 7 years. What's taking place now, and many of the projects we are seeing and you'll hear about, is just a few of the things that are transforming the economy of Saudi Arabia. We've heard earlier about the education programs, including the programs being run in the United States and elsewhere around the world for Saudi students enrolled in universities. Also, there are a lot of changes in the society where women are now part of the working force and are increasingly engaged in this important role of developing a nation. So transformation is happening at many levels, and its effects are showing now and will show more dramatically in the next 5 to 10 years. What is important for us today to talk about is really the automotive industry. I'm not an expert in automotive, as you've heard from my background, but I've been working at this tough nut for the past 5 years. And it's been a challenge, but I think now we've got it in a place where it's all coming together. So this is one of the good examples of how Saudi Arabia, government and companies work together to be able to create an industry similar to the oil, similar to the petrochemical, similar to the metals and minerals. And now we're seeing other industries emerging. And to do that, the government has assigned the Industrial Clusters Program as the main focal agency for automotive investments in Saudi Arabia. We know this is a difficult and challenging road, but the kingdom has committed to undertake it, and the way we're going to be doing it is through collaboration, and you will have one entity to deal with to manage the development of this cluster and your projects. So what are the main objectives that we have? I've listed 4 here. Number 1 is building a sustainable and globally competitive cluster. We want to make sure that we are competitive in a global market because we have to be competitive from day one. So the cluster has to be a competitive location. Number 2, we are assigned in developing anchor OEM and key supplier projects, similar to the one that we've done with the Isuzu, which started last year, and with the ones we're working on, including the Jaguar Land Rover project, which we are in the feasibility study phase. Number 3, we also work on facilitating startups of OEM and supplier and service businesses for the cluster. And finally, we're responsible for creating the enabling environment for the cluster to be able to compete globally. The enabling environment include policies, regulations, and also includes ensuring that the infrastructure is there to help this industry to start up and grow. The way we look at it is to build a sustainable automotive cluster that can serve the needs of a fast-growing regions, especially the MENA region, needs to be done in a phased and methodical approach. And we envision that we want to reach a volume of around 400,000 vehicles, although small in the realm of Detroit, but it is an important aspect of how we want to carve a niche for Saudi Arabia to be serving this, the growing regions. So starting with the phase 1 of around 50,000 vehicles and moving into another phase of 150,000, moving to a third phase, 300,000, until we reach 400,000 vehicles in phase 4. And we desire to do that within a period of around 10 years. It is a big challenge, but we have determined and we're putting resources to make it happen. Now, to enable the cluster, we've developed a unique value proposition that includes 7 elements: the cluster itself, the auto zone, which will house the main investments of the clusters, the materials that we've heard a little bit about in the presentation of Abdul Latif Al Athman, the infrastructure or the national infrastructure that will support the cluster, the human capital, and finally the market. Let me start off with the cluster itself. Our approach is really to develop or to forge a development partnership with companies. What entails a development partnership? What I'm describing here is a partnership between basic materials, company, suppliers, and OEMs, facilitated in collaboration, working with the industrial cluster program as the main entity to drive this cluster, and also with the auto zone authority that will be developing the zone itself. What we'd like to have is the companies focusing on their core business, and we focus on facilitating and helping them to achieve their objectives. So basic materials will provide metals, plastics, and chemicals to the industry. Suppliers will build or manufacture components and parts. OEMs will build vehicles and will provide development and engineering work. And universities will provide educated workforce, and training will provide training workforce, services, utilities, logistics, all being managed and facilitated by a core agency. It's very important to instill this collaboration and to call it a partnership, because this cannot work by only one agency or the companies looking after their own interests. So for the cluster, what would the cluster project benefit from? And we have designed a slew of incentives that we believe are very important to have the cluster flourish. The first is building the auto zone itself, and the phase one infrastructure investments are estimated to be around $400 million, and it will provide developed industrial land and factory buildings for lease at highly competitive terms. Also, utilities will be provided at highly competitive terms. The second element is we're creating a public-private investment company that will invest in the challenging automotive projects. It's envisioned to be capitalized around $300 million and will invest in anchor projects in partnership with either OEMs or qualified suppliers. Number three, the human capital development. We're working on building an automotive academy with an investment of $70 million. Plus, we provide wage and training financial incentives to train Saudi employees. On the fiscal and financial side, the industrial loans at highly competitive terms, export finance and insurance, import duty exemptions, and a flat corporate tax at 20%. Now, moving on to where are we in the cluster progress. We're having steady progress. The first project with Isuzu started in 2012. We've talked about the Jaguar Land Rover feasibility study that's undergoing, and we signed the letter of intent in 2012. Some other major projects that are taking place in the component side includes the small plastic parts, which will start operation in 2013. Under hood nylon parts will start operations also in 2013. There are a number of other components projects where we signed letter of intents earlier this year, includes large plastic parts, aluminum casting, and seat and harness production, plus aluminum and steel stamping, which is very critical for the operations of the automotive industry. Looking at the AutoZone, and I believe my colleague, Dr. Ala Nasif, also will have a greater role in describing what the Royal Commission is doing for the AutoZone. What I would like to cover is how did we develop this concept of the AutoZone? The AutoZone was developed with Oliver Wyman, consulting firm in the United States, and our target was trying to achieve significant reduction in capital investment and in unit cost operations for the companies. So the focus was, how can we create more shared facilities and more shared processes? The concept was then tested with 4 major global OEMs in 2012 to make sure that we have not missed or we have included anything that would not be appropriate from their business standpoint. All the feedback we've received from the OEMs were incorporated in the latest AutoZone concept that we're going to be sharing with you today. And much more work is included there, but I'll show you a brief of what has been done. This is a busy slide, but what it tries to depict is that the cluster wanted to maximize shared processes, facilities, and services. On the left side, you see a concept of the cluster, which includes 3 major OEMs, central facilities in the middle to support them, such as aluminum stamping and also plastic injection molding and engine dressing. And on the peripheries, you see all the supplier, including supplier condos that can, or ready facilities for the suppliers to be able to be housed in these condos. These factories buildings will be available on lease so that we reduce the capital requirements for companies to start business and the speed for them to start business. There will be also in the suppliers and services section, which is depicted in the color, in the yellow color, central logistics, shared technical services like maintenance, testing, and a test track. If we look at the zone infrastructure, which is in light blue, the companies will develop plots, utilities hook up at the plot, road and highway network to move products and people in and out of the zone, and also connectivity to ports and airports. Moving to the shared facilities and services, which is depicted in the darker blue, there will be an auto academy. There exists right now in the zone or near the zone a university and other vocational training. The zone will also have a bonded zone so that we can clear customs for all parts that has to come from around the world. And it will include a business park, civic and security services, and people and products transportation services. And finally, the living community, which will be next to the zone, will have the housing and recreation, international and Saudi schools, hospitals and clinic, retail centers, and hotels. Overall, we're trying to create a full living and working location where the cluster can grow and provide a well-advanced facilities for the people living there. Moving to materials, one of the basic elements of our plan for the AutoZone was the development of key basic materials to make the zone have a competitive advantage. and the cluster as a whole. This slide shows some of the major projects that are going to support the automotive cluster, and these are taking place by design to enable the auto industry in Saudi Arabia. So Ma'aden Alcoa complex, this is integrated from mine to auto sheet, will also produce aluminum sheet series 5 and 6, which is very important for meeting new standards, environmental standards, and lightening the vehicles. Also, liquid aluminum will be available for auto cast products and for engine and transmission manufacturing. Sabik Hadid Steel Complex will also provide cold sheet for automotive. And there are many plastics and chemicals that are being or planned to be produced in the next couple of years. I've selected a few here. Propylene is already in, polypropylene is already in production. Synthetic rubber is under construction. ABS, polycarbonate, nylon 6,6, polyurethanes, carbon fiber, which is also an important material for the automotive industries in the future and lightening the vehicles, carbon black, and adhesives. Now, looking at the infrastructure and the national infrastructure that supports the auto cluster, major rail projects are underway that can significantly improve logistics. This includes the Land Bridge Railway, which ties up the east of Saudi Arabia with the west of Saudi Arabia, and this will be able to move passengers and cargo and expected to be completed by 2020. So we can move on this automotive or vehicles to the Gulf region and also move materials like aluminum from the and plastics from the west, from the east to the west. The GCC railway is also under construction and is expected to be completed in 2017 for passengers and cargoes. The North-South Railway is planned for 2014 for passengers and cargo, and the Haramain high-speed rail in 2014 for movement of passengers between Mecca and Medina and Jeddah. Now, to serve the auto cluster and the auto zone, seaports are provided on the west coast, and they have efficient and cost-effective import and export operations. We have the King Fahd Industrial Port at Yanbu with seven berths, including 2 container and 1 roll-on roll-off. The planned King Abdullah Economic City Port, which will start